I'm going to give you some tips on how to increase the likelihood that an addict will achieve or get sobriety. It could be an addiction to a substance, an activity, legal, illegal, doesn't matter, any type of addiction. An addiction is defined as something that someone does and continues in spite of the fact that it is causing problems in his or her life and relationships. It could be legal problems, financial problems, health problems, relationship problems, employment problems, any problem that is being caused, or it is typically not just one problem, but multiple problems that are caused by the activity, and yet the addict persists in the activity or persists using the substance, and then when he or she tries to stop, they can't stop, and the addiction worsens over time. It goes from less to more. And the family members and friends of people who are addicted can see the addiction. For a while they're in denial, eventually they see it, and they desperately want the person to stop, to get help, to get sobriety. Sobriety means mental and emotional and physical health and sound judgment, not using the substance, not engaging in the activity, and being restored to wholeness. How do you increase the likelihood that an addict will achieve sobriety? Well, I'm going to tell you what not to do so that you'll know what to do. The first thing is you stop nagging. I know you think that if you don't say anything and if you don't give all those lectures that the person is not going to get it. The person is walking around in denial saying that there's no problem, but I'm going to tell you that your nagging doesn't help. In fact, your nagging only gives the addict an excuse to engage in the addiction, because why wouldn't he or she when they're so miserable because of what you're doing? So don't nag. Nagging is saying the same thing over and over, getting on somebody's back, telling them how rotten they are, telling them how much everything is causing a problem. It doesn't help. The next one is to stop belittling. Stop putting the addict down, telling them that he's a loser, or that she's never going to amount to anything, or that the life is going to fall apart, things are going to get worse, everything is going to get awful. When you start putting the addict down and telling the addict how bad he is and how rotten all of this is on you and how it's affecting you and the family, when you do this consistently, the addict's self-esteem lowers, the pain level rises, even if you can't see it and he's not aware of it, and then that's just more reason to engage in the addiction, because the addiction is an attempt to numb the pain that the addict is already experiencing. The next one is to stop enabling. Enabling means that your help allows someone to continue to do what is not good. So enabling for an alcoholic would mean that you buy the alcohol, or that you go to bars with them so that they don't have to drive home drunk, so that you can drive them home. It would be providing money to a drug addict who doesn't have any money to buy the drugs, or paying the drug addict or the alcoholic's bills so that there's plenty of money to buy the alcohol or buy the drugs. That's enabling. Enabling can also be calling the boss, making excuses, lying to family members, explaining that the person isn't there because she's not feeling well, or she just stayed up late, when in fact it's a hangover, or it's being sick, or it's actually because the person is high or intoxicated at that time. Don't enable. The next one is to stop threatening. Now, threatening is what we engage in when we are at our limits and we feel like there's nothing else to do and we're totally exasperated, and we get to the point where we want to just wag our finger and say, if you don't blank, blank, blank. But threatening doesn't do any good, because threatening is an empty thing. When you threaten, you don't usually mean it. You usually do it when you're emotionally reactive, when you're exhausted, when you're tired, when you feel you can't take any more. But when you calm down and pull yourself together, often the threats are empty, because then you're not at the same place you were when you were so exasperated that you had to make that threat, and then you don't do anything. So you just condition the addict to hear your threats and ignore them. So when you get to the point when you really are willing to set a boundary, you're not going to be believed. So stop threatening. And the last one is to stop controlling. Now, oftentimes we feel like we're being controlled by the addict because our lives are so affected by what we see going on. But when we try to control the addict, or the alcoholic, how many drinks you drink, when you drink, what you say, what you do, when you go to work, when you don't go to work, when you get up, when you don't get up, all of these things, when we try to control it, or when we try to check the computer over and over again to see if the addiction is going on, and the person is looking at pornography, when we do all the controlling and we do all the checking and try to manage this and keep all the balls in the air that would just kind of fall and everything would fall apart so that the addict doesn't have to experience the consequences of her choices. And a lot of times we do that because we don't want to experience that rollover of consequences that affects us. If it's somebody you're married to and there's no money coming in, you're wondering how you're going to keep the house, or how you're going to pay the bills, or how you're going to buy the kids' clothes. If it's if it's your child, you're just horrified at the possibilities of your child ending up in jail or getting hurt or being on the street. I mean, all of these things. But the problem is when we try to control the addict doesn't have to step up and face the consequences of their own decisions and get their own help, taking the responsibility for their choices. So when you look at these things, I'm going to read them again. Stop nagging, stop belittling, stop enabling, stop threatening, and stop controlling. You're saying, what does that leave me? I don't really have much left. Precisely. What you have left is to turn the focus back on yourself. You get healthy. You get yourself together. When you're dealing with an addict and in a relationship with an addict, you get kind of sick and messed up too. You get kind of crazy. You get kind of controlling. You start doing things that don't make any sense. Start reacting to the problem. You've got to get that focus off of that addict and back onto you. You start getting healthy. You start doing what you need to do to take care of yourself. You start getting stronger so that you can set some boundaries and make some choices for yourself. Get stronger so that you can deal with your anxiety so that you don't have to enable when you're fearful. Do all of those things that you need to do to get yourself back together. And if you've got children in your family, to get your children healthy so that your children can begin to have better coping with the addiction. And that when the family gets well, it has been known since the early days of treatment that when the family gets well, the addict has a much greater chance of getting well himself. Thank you for watching this video on Change My Relationship.